Spoilers ahead. Watch out, and take care. The movie begins in Spain. Eduardo is waiting for his friend, Igor, outside the prison, since today he is being released from prison. When Igor comes outside, he greets him warmly, and then introduces him to his girlfriend, Vanessa. Eduardo brings him to a car after they get to know each other, where some girls are waiting inside, eager to serve Igor. Then they each drive their own cars somewhere, and arrive at a large house, owned by a prominent mafia figure in town. It turns out Igor had previously worked there as a mule. Their visit is warmly welcomed by their buddies, as Igor is a well-known gangster. Soon, Alfonso, the chief of the dealers, greets them. He appears to be overjoyed about Igor's arrival, and he urges him to rest at home, because he has a lot of work for him later. Igor enters the house and encounters Saeed there. Saeed shares the residence with his wife, who is an addict, and can't go a day without. Igor heads to his room to recuperate, before beginning his new day outside the prison. He begins to put a bug under the sink. A massive revelation: it turns out he became a spy while in prison, and he is now working with the police to catch the Mafia. Eduardo's crew is on their way to deliver a massive amount of stuff. Thugs are transporting it by boat to a beachfront, where they will be handed over to Eduardo's guys. Interestingly, they carry out delivery transactions on a crowded beach, but they don't care. The most important thing is that they complete the assignment successfully. Sarah, a Spanish female police officer, is looking into a traffic accident that may have resulted in a homicide. She collaborates with her teammate, Bob. Her employer informs her that the primary suspect in this case is yet to be identified. Later in the evening, Sarah and Bob are drinking and conversing. She tells him about Igor, the spy who was recently released from prison. She informs him she has been collaborating with Igor since he was imprisoned. She enlisted him as a spy, in order to apprehend the drug dealer's leader and his crew. Bob compliments her and promises to fully support her in capturing the Mafia. The next day, Eduardo and Igor travel to a ranch to meet Alfonso, the Mafia boss. Alfonso works as a rancher, in addition to being the Mafia's leader. He informs Igor that he has important tasks for him to complete. They and a few other members will transport a massive amount of coke to a Mafia in France, which Igor readily agrees to. They leave the property after finishing their planned conversation. Back in Igor's room, he examines the bug he installed, then grabs a SIM card he had hidden there before, and sends Sarah a note from using Saeed's phone in stealth, informing her that they will be delivering the illegal stuff to France tomorrow. Sarah informs her supervisor about the plan after receiving his message. Her supervisor orders her to notify all of her teammates, in order to plan the ambush. Later in the evening, Sarah is on her way to another police division, to request support for the ambush tomorrow. Molin is in charge of this division. They're debating their strategy, and assigning tasks for this massive raid. In France, Bruno is the boss of a French gang. Bruno and his friends are enjoying supper in a restaurant, while discussing bawdy topics. Their chat is making the other guests uncomfortable, so one of them requests they lower their voices, but Bruno refuses. He approaches him and attacks him, advising the man not to bother him. Bruno and his friends then depart the restaurant. The next day, Igor implants a bug in one of the vehicles that would transport the drugs. The bug will transmit a signal to Sarah and her team, indicating they are on their way to the location. Eduardo asks all his buddies to remain attentive, and stay in the group during their travel to the appointed spot, and he cautions them no one can leave the group without his permission, knowing this is the largest shipment in their business's history. Saeed's wife enters and joins as they prepare to leave. Igor and one other member are riding the bike for this shipment, while others are driving their automobiles, following them. Back in France, Richard, a police commander, and his officers are looking into a murder case. They head to an apartment complex, hoping to gather further evidence from the individuals who live there, that will lead them to the culprit. They encounter an elderly lady who lives there, and she appears to have a habit of spying on individuals who reside in the neighborhood. She presents some images to a cop who comes to her house, complete with their information, and informs she uses her camera to monitor people she suspects of doing something strange. The elderly lady informs the detective she knew a Mafia member named Christ, who lived in this apartment complex. Back to Eduardo, who is driving his car to deliver, while dialing Christ. He informs him that his team will be arriving in France shortly, to give the stuff to Bruno. Christ expresses his willingness to assist him in completing the task at any time. Saeed's wife is taking some substance, as they are on their way. Saeed tells her he is sick of her addiction, and begs her to stop, but she simply ignores him. She vomits inside the car, and falls unconscious moments later. He tries to rouse her up angrily, but she remains motionless. He gets concerned at this point. At the same moment, Eduardo sends a message to his entire squad, instructing them to keep together, as they approach the Spanish and French borders. We return to Saeed, who is still attempting to awaken his wife, but to no avail. Then he chooses to quit the group, and drives away. He is anxious about her, and continues attempting to wake her up. A couple of Spanish cops come up and ask him what is going on. He responds hesitantly to the police inquiry. When the cops see his suspicious conduct, they ask him to raise his hands. Instead of following police orders, he starts a fire. Eduardo arrives on the scene a split second later, and immediately shoots the cops. He approaches Saeed after dispatching all of the cops, chastising him for leaving the gang. He tells Saeed to leave his wife's body, who was unexpectedly shot in the earlier gunfire, and to hurry up and leave the area. Following that, he calls the squad and informs them they must take another route, because it is too late to cross the border. Moving to Sarah and her squads, who are waiting for the Mafia gang, but they are forced to depart due to word of a gunfight near the border. She and her colleagues rush to the crime scene, to help the victims. The Mafia party commanded by Eduardo arrives in France, and they choose to take a short break in the nearest village. Eduardo approaches an elderly man, and requests that he and his guys spend the night at his home. The old man is initially hesitant to let Eduardo enter his home, but Eduardo persists. Later, the old man treats them like guests to dinner in the evening. During dinner, Eduardo urges the old man's son not to be afraid of them, and he advises him to become a tough guy when he grows up. For everything he said, the boy simply nods his head. Soon, we witness the old man stepping outside to surreptitiously inspect Eduardo and his men's cars. He notices numerous bullet holes in their vehicles, and gets alerted. Eduardo appears out of nowhere, discovers what the elderly man has just realized, and murders him. He returns to the house after killing, and tells Igor to bring the old man's wife and son outdoors. He orders Igor to kill them as well, in order to destroy any witnesses to his crime. Igor takes the old man's wife and son outside, while Eduardo and Vanessa go upstairs, to spend the night together. Returning to Richard in France, who has just learned from a teammate that they have a new task. They must apprehend a gang of Spanish Mafia members, who are ready to conduct a deal within their country. Richard instructs his crew to work with the Spanish police to raid the Mafia during the transaction. In the evening, they have a meeting with the Spanish police unit, which is commanded by Sarah. The French and Spanish police forces are gathering to plan an ambush strategy. They have each been assigned a mission. After their discussion, Richard phones his only daughter, to tell her how much he loves her and that he'll be home soon. The Mafia group resumes their journey the next day, and before leaving the town, Saeed states he will drive the old man's car, because his car is covered in bullet holes, and elsewhere, Bruno is ready to pick up the stuff at the predetermined place. The same is true for Christ, who is likewise willing to travel somewhere, to assist Eduardo with the sale. When Christ gets into his car, an elderly lady who lives in the same apartment complex, spots him from her window. Eduardo, Igor and other team members take a short break, and Igor takes advantage of the opportunity to call Sarah, informing her that they are nearing the chosen place. Sarah immediately alerts her staff to prepare, after receiving the location information from Igor. For this mission to be successful, all of the police officers use their full force, allowing all of the mafias to be apprehended. Shortly, the cops arrive at the stated spot, which is a historical tourist attraction in France. After a long wait, the mafia's cars begin to arrive at the area one by one. Suddenly, a bus full of children arrives for a tour of the site. It turns out it was part of their plan to cover this transaction and evade the cops, so the deal would go as planned. The transfer from Eduardo to Bruno goes smoothly, and they are ready to leave the premises. The cops all believe it is a good time to ambush them. Surprisingly, no one from the mafia's side fights the cops during the raid. Instead, they remain calm and submit. However, 2 automobiles and 2 motorcycles, including Igor's, manage to flee the ambush, and the authorities immediately follow them. After a long chase, the policemen are ultimately able to apprehend one automobile, while the other car, which Saeed is driving, and Igor, who is riding the bike, manage to elude the cops. After that, the cops escort all of the mafia members to the police station. Igor, Saeed and other mafia members are parking up, after evading the police's pursuit. They argue and point fingers, because their mission has failed, and many of their friends have been detained. While they are still criticizing each other, Saeed responds to Christ's call, who informs him one of them is a spy. After hearing what Christ said, Saeed notifies Igor about the spy, and points his gun at him, but when he pulls the trigger, it is not Igor, he kills someone else. Igor appears relieved that he managed to conceal his betrayal. Back to Sarah, she is questioning Eduardo at the police station. Sarah inquires as to who his boss is, but instead of responding, he invites her to spend the night with him. Mullen, who is present, starts beating him. Vanessa requests a cigarette when she notices Richard walking in front of her cell. She also offers herself to him, but Richard gently declines her offer, saying she is not his type. Sarah meets Bruno after she has questioned Eduardo. Bruno threatens her, stating she will be sorry for everything she has done to him. But Sarah and the other cops are unfazed by him. Richard is so enraged after hearing what Bruno said to her that he punches Bruno in the face. Sarah and Richard walk outside to take a breather, following their encounter with Mafia men. She discovers that he is a widower with a daughter. He discovers that she remains single, because she is preoccupied with her career as a cop. It appears they are both drawn to each other. Soon, Sarah receives a call from her partner, advising her they have discovered the address of the Mafia lord Alfonso. The officers then ambush the residence, arriving just in time to take out all of Alfonso's men. Alfonso is finally apprehended inside the residence by 2 cops. When those 2 cops find him, he pretends to surrender, but then shoots them. All of Alfonso's subordinates are dead, and the situation has been brought under control for some time, but the detectives have yet to locate Alfonso. It turns out that he is posing as a cop. He exits the residence dressed in a police uniform. But his cover is blown, and the detectives apprehend him. He refuses to surrender, so they shoot him, killing him. Next, a joint police force from France and Spain is on their way to transfer all Mafia members to a high-security jail, but an unexpected accident occurs on the highway, trapping them in traffic. Mullen arrives to inform Sarah they must wait until the evacuation is completed, because there is no other way to the prison. Vanessa asks Bob to let her go outside for a while to pee, while they are waiting in the car, but Bob refuses and urges her to hold it. She then relieves herself inside the car. It turns out to be a code used by Mafia members to launch an attack on cops. The Mafia men shoot a couple of cops who are inside the car. Eduardo eventually manages to elude the cops, but Vanessa and numerous cops get killed. Next, Sarah meets a lawyer, who had just gotten out of his car. He informs her that detaining someone like Bruno is a major mistake, but she tells him she isn't afraid of him at all. A critical witness to Eduardo and his men's actions arrives at the police station. The main witnesses are revealed to be the elderly man's wife and son, who were killed by Eduardo. Eduardo is eating his meal while watching the news on television, and he gets a glimpse of the old man's wife and son on the screen. He realizes Igor is the spy who betrayed them, since he didn't kill them. Soon, he goes somewhere to see Christ, and asks for his help in finding a place to hide. He is picked up by Christ's man, and taken immediately to Christ's residence. Knowing Eduardo is in Christ's home, Said and Igor decide to meet him, and hide themselves there as well. Eduardo greets them with a smile when they arrive, but his smile quickly changes to wrath. He is so furious at Igor's betrayal that he orders some men to capture him, and imprison him in the back of the house. He is also planning to assassinate Said for destabilizing their plot, as a result of his late wife. Moving on to Richard and Sarah, he walks her home, and she asks him to come over to her place, which he accepts, kissing her. They spend the night together. In another area, a couple of cops are conducting a patrol, and discover probable Mafia bikes and cars. They inform Richard, who informs Sarah that he must leave. Eduardo is tormenting Igor for his treason at Christ's home. He wonders why he did this to him, and Igor tells him that he is weary of doing horrible things all the time. He then murders Igor without saying anything. Soon, he notices the officers approaching, fully armed, and stationed outside the house. The cops ambush him and his men, and another dramatic gunfight ensues between the cops and the bad guys. The cops break into the house, and Sarah discovers Igor dead inside the cell. The police attack overwhelm the criminals, and they eventually succeed in apprehending Eduardo. When he insults Sarah once again, she gets enraged and aims her gun at him. But one of her partains intervenes and shoots Eduardo himself. The next day, Sarah goes to meet Richard. But she stops when she sees him outside with his daughter and ex-wife. She is disappointed that she cannot be with him, but relieved that he is reunited with his family. The end. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out.